Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy comedians and the comedy industry. A sentence the algorithm loves and I can't remember enough to write down in the notes every day. Cracked asked, are we learning a little too much about Nikki Glaser? This reminds me, I wanted to bring up, when I was driving back from the Costco concert last week with my daughter, we started talking about Nikki's revelations, and I've been pulling my punches a little because, like, I'm a dude and maybe I just don't get it. I'm an old man. But my daughter, who's, a cool Gen Zer, she was not into what Nikki was selling at all. She's like, yeah, we don't need to know any of that. And my daughter and I are aligned. I hope Nikki's okay, because it seems like Nikki really, really has self-esteem issues. Cracked writes, what goes on inside Nikki Glaser's bedroom is not the concern of anybody besides her boyfriend, and their potential side pieces. Anybody who's been around stand-up comedians in their off hours knows that, like any artistic community, comics tend to be a kinky bunch. Some personal preferences are fittingly laughable, some are uncomfortably extreme, but hey, so as long as everyone's consenting, it's not our place to judge an artist for their proclivities. Cracked writes, at the same time, when arguably the most iconic roast comic of her generation goes on Call Her Daddy and discusses her curiosity about the increasingly popular ethical non-monogamy lifestyle, she opens herself up to all sorts of slams and burns from an online comedy community that's eager to test out their own roasting skills. Let me jump in there about the roast. I was thinking about this too. Nikki not doing the roast of Kevin Hart, I don't think that's a scheduling thing. I think that's the agent trying to steer her away from being a roast comic and being the type of person who hosts awards shows. Obviously, she's hosting the Golden Globes. Somewhere in my travels, maybe it was the Town podcast, put in my head that maybe Conan doesn't want to host the Oscars again, and maybe they'd consider Nikki Glaser. So I think this is the agent steering. I don't know anything. That's just, I've been doing this for a while and know how to read the tea leaves, and that'd be my guess. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at this. I was wondering if she's on tour. She's on tour. You know where she is the week of the Kevin Hart roast? She's in Los Angeles at the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival, so she's in town. I'm sure she could do a minute. I'm sure Jeff Ross and the gang would write her a couple lines. So I think they're steering her away from this. Nikki does have time to do the Night of Too Many Stars, May 7th in LA at the Hollywood Bowl. Crack points out, Glaser never actually said that either she or her boyfriend have actually acted on their non-monogamous impulses. And she only spoke about the exploration of their boundaries in hypothetical situations. For all we know, the thought alone is enough to get the blood pumping for these lovebirds, and it'll never go further than that. Again, you do you. I just don't think the press on that one went the way Nikki thought it was going to go. The folks at the Minneapolis Star Tribune went to see John Mulaney. Minor spoilers for John's current tour, Mr. Whatever. The Star Trib tells us John Mulaney isn't afraid to take chances. In the opener, John Mulaney turned stand-up tropes on their heads for nearly 2 hours, a marathon in the stand-up world, only pausing a couple of times to sip water. Spoilers, how he turned a bit on fatherhood into an excuse to reflect on devil possession, and rip RFK Jr. was a magic trick equal to anything you'd see at a David Copperfield show. Lots of comics have riffed on The Wizard of Oz, but how many have targeted the black and white portions in which Ray Bolger is less than convincing as a farmhand? That's good. A bit about in-laws turned into a rant about how marrying Asian-American actress Olivia Munn has resulted in him financially supporting roughly a dozen Vietnamese Americans. Some of the material, like his thoughts on how Jesus must have loved posing for pictures, seemed better suited for SNL, but there's no way NBC censors would let him get away with the language he used on stage. This is good, because I like to see comedians evolve. They tell us John Mulaney did not dive into the part of his personal past that has generated headlines, but he didn't ignore them either. He revealed he's only allowed to carry $200 in cash with him at any time, decreasing the chances that he'll revive his cocaine habit. Sounds like it was a good show. Jim Gaffigan was talking food on The Late Show with Star Trek ruiner Stephen Colbert. We learned that Jim Gaffigan's top choice is a classic pastrami sandwich from Katz's Delicatessen in New York City. Then he added, if you're in Chicago with nothing on your schedule, go for an Italian beef from Mr. Beef or Luminati's. How he likes his hot beef? He says, hot peppers. He also pointed out it's messy, but that's part of the appeal. Chicago food, I'm fat enough, I would weigh 400 pounds if I lived out there. Those beef sandwiches are awesome. I love the pizza. I'm not here to debate pizza with you. I like it a lot. Colbert asks, what do you do if you have plans after eating one of the sandwiches? Yes, pro tip, having spent a lot of time in Chicago, if you get one of those beef sandwiches with the hot peppers, you want to have a plan. You know what I mean? Like maybe get one and go back to the hotel room and work on your comedy podcast scripts for a little bit. And, it's good to be back in the room. Say no more. You know what I'm saying? Gaffigan said, the problem is no one's ever eaten a pastrami sandwich and done anything. You have a pastrami sandwich and then you're like, goodbye. Greg Gutfeld's What Did I Miss? Coming back. New season, April 27th, 3 episodes, hosted by Greg Gutfeld. The premise of the show has a group of people who isolated themselves in upstate New York with no access to media, trying to determine which of the news headlines cited by Gutfeld are real. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if they've missed the last 2 weeks and some of the things the President of the United States has done on social media? They're not going to believe any of it. Oh no, unfortunately, this was filmed after Thanksgiving. 5 contestants were cut off from phones, internet, television, social media, along with all communication from friends and family. They re-entered society after Valentine's Day and had to take a quiz from Gutfeld about what happened in the world while they were sequestered. Contestants compete for $50,000. Gutfeld said, against all logic, people volunteered to do this crazy game show again. And the only thing standing between them and victory is me. Can we just find somebody who's been in like a coma for the last 2 weeks? I'd like to just quiz that person and be like, hey, here, I'll tell you, I was joking about this with my friends at trivia recently. I have this way of I can convince people that I know what I'm talking about, and the rest of the trivia team goes, yeah, that makes sense, and they write it down. And I was joking about, in 3 years, if the trivia guys ask, on Easter Sunday, the President of the United States mentioned this religious figure, I'm going to convince everybody it's Jesus, and then somebody's going to go, no, not who he mentioned. I'm going to go like, that makes no sense. It was Easter. Of course he mentioned Jesus, but I digress, and somebody's going to get mad at me now. The late night ratings. Star Trek ruiner Stephen Colbert remains the most-watched program at 11:35 total viewers, 2.7 million. Future king of late night Jimmy Kimmel, 2.53 million viewers, up 6%. The Tonight Show, starring Jimmy Fallon, 1.33 million. Gutfeld, which airs at 10 Eastern, 7 West, did 3.3 million. The Daily Show is averaging 1.13 million total viewers. At 12:37, Seth Meyers has a show for some reason. It's averaging 1 million total viewers, and that's a nice number until I tell you adults 18 to 49, 139,000. Not that much more than this show. I'm a lot closer to Seth Meyers than Seth Meyers is to Stephen Colbert. Let's put it that way. And soon we'll all be able to watch Byron Allen's thing. Oh, I keep forgetting to mention, I've had this story for a couple times, and then yesterday I was depressed about the death of Raw Dog Comedy. A week or so ago, I went to see Oslo at Costco with my daughter. So I'm a comedy snob, and my daughter works in the theater industry, and she knows how bookings work. And I had mentioned on a previous episode, Oslo did 4 chunks that totaled 58 minutes. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. There's a minimum time you have to do to get paid. Like, you can't walk out and just do 4 minutes. So Oslo gets to the end and kind of looks over to the side of the stage, and somebody must have yelled out, like, no, you can't leave. So she kind of on the fly went, hey, how about we do some Q&A? And I've seen plenty of comedians do Q&A. Jerry Seinfeld does Q&A, and it's a good way to pad your time. And the Q&A was actually quite entertaining. But we were sitting there, and I was looking at the watch, and my daughter told me what the minimum probably was, 70 minutes. And I'm like, she's got 9 more minutes to kill. And sure enough, as soon as the clock struck 9:10, it was like, okay, good night, everybody. I'm not ragging on Oslo, it's everybody, but it was fun sitting in the audience knowing what was really going on. But the civilians in the audience enjoyed the Q&A. Here's a really weird one from Pete Davidson, this via TMZ, who write, according to audio obtained by TMZ, Pete Davidson, who recently became a father, joked during his comedy show on Saturday that becoming a girl dad has complicated watching porn. TMZ, I'm going to read the sentence verbatim and not put any spin on it. TMZ wrote this sentence. On stage at Las Vegas Fontainebleau, Pete reportedly quipped that it's now hard to watch porn in front of her. He kidded. I still did. I power through. Did I mention that's a weird joke to make? Because that's a weird joke to make. Nick Mohammed got in a dig at influencers. Nick was hosting the Olivier Awards. This at London's Royal Albert Hall. You know, the one where they've counted all the holes? As he opened up the ceremony, Nick Mohammed, you know Nick from Ted Lasso, he joked he had some housekeeping to do and said, in case of any kind of emergencies, please, can everyone leave in the following order? Me, Helen Mirren, Sir Ian McKellen, everyone else, and then influencers. Love it. So let's stay on that side of the pond. As they say, leading comedy executives fear that relocation of the Edinburgh TV Festival would be a disaster for British talent. They point out Fleabag, Baby Reindeer, SNL UK, and Taskmaster are just a handful of shows that may have never seen the light of day if it wasn't for the Edinburgh TV Festival's alchemy with the Edinburgh Fringe. Well, the TV Festival folks have invited bids to relocate. Avalon co-founder John Tode said relocation would be a disaster. Look at the number of people who come over every year from the American industry to Edinburgh. Think about Phoebe Waller-Bridge or Baby Reindeer. These connections were often made with American executives hearing about them via the television festival. What would be the point of Netflix, HBO, or Warner Brothers sending people to Newcastle to discuss things like the funding of the BBC? Let's fly around the world. Down in Melbourne, the Melbourne International Comedy Festival continues. I got a clip for you. This is Ian Smith. Ian's show is called Foot Spa Half Empty.
My housemate, he's weird, 35 years old, still draws a little line on his milk in marker pen to know where the level was. I think that's stupid, but I get my own back, I buy my own milk, and I use that to top his milk up just above the line. He's confused, he's looking at it, he thinks the milk is growing. I have sat and watched him Google the phrase, does milk expand?
Good stuff there from Ian Smith. The Guardian went to see Anissa Nandula, her show No Small Talk. Chatty fun with the rising star of Australian comedy. Anissa Nandula is a Ugandan Australian comedian. The Guardian tells us from the moment she bounds on stage, Nandula's energy is infectious. She's almost aggressively bubbly, her demeanor a counterpoint to the dryness she sees in the Australian sense of humor. I pulled a clip. Should we listen? We should listen.
Hello, my name's Anissa. I got called a lot of names in school, but I could never get upset because the names were pretty good. In school, I had a massive afro. My best friend was gay. They called us the Two Puffs. I brought my Australian boyfriend to Kenya for the first time, and they kept calling him Muzungu, which means white person. And I was like, no, Asian. How do you say Asian in your language? And this Kenyan woman was like, China. She was like, in Kenya we have black and white, and anything I don't quite understand falls into China. Iranian, China. Uzbekistan, China. Brazilian, sexy China.
That was pretty good, right? We're told she started as a slam poet. Her reliance on the audience is never mean-spirited or unkind, but it will still be a deterrent for many. If you're brave enough to sit at the front, you better be ready to share. Anissa Nandula's No Small Talk at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival until April 19th. You better get on that plane. Brett McKenzie closed out his Freakout City, New Zealand tour at Auckland's Hollywood Avondale. 2 hours of music and mirth. You know Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords, who we're talking about a lot. With a two-piece horn section and two backing vocalists, the band is versatile enough to handle anything Brett McKenzie throws at them. This became clear when McKenzie wrote a song on the spot based on a story somebody in the audience shouted out. I'm looking at the set list here. If you were hoping to hear Flight of the Conchords hits, I don't think you got them. Macpacker Tom Cavanaugh joins Tony Danza and Michael Longfellow in Broken Snow, a tense psychological drama set inside an abandoned snowbound house. There, two strangers, James, a volatile drifter, and Stephen, a tightly controlled officer, discover they share a dark familial connection. Pretty dark for some people known to be pretty funny. Broken Snow opens on the 19th and runs through May 23rd at Theater 71 in New York City. Today's your last day to vote for Comedy Survivor, the finale, Nikki Glaser versus Sarah Silverman. Make sure you get your votes in. Go to the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. And I didn't forget, let's check in Austin. It's the Moontower Comedy Festival. 5 o'clock, the Goblin Happy Hour with John Goblicon. That's fun. Mark Maron at the Paramount at 7 o'clock. You would find me there if I ever left the house. Hey, I left the house once last week. Doug Benson and Friends at 8. Ryan Redband's Secret Show at the Sunset Strip at 8. Deborah G. Giovanni at Higbee's at 8:30. Matthew Broussard and Jackie Cation at 9 o'clock. And Antoine's Leslie Jones. She did not win Comedy Survivor. She's at the Paramount at 9:30. Wow, back-to-back with Maron. That's a good place. Just hang out there all night. And that is your comedy news for today. I'll see you tomorrow.